Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Game Reactor. Today we have quite a surprising one for you, actually, because if you've been following the sort of summer event season for the past few years, actually, you might be familiar with this game because it first popped up a few years ago under a working title, and then it kind of disappeared. But now it's back, and we're talking about Echoes of the End. I'm currently here with two of the guys from Mirkur Games, an Icelandic studio, believe it or not. But you don't see many Icelandic studios, so I guess you guys are a bit of a rarity in that way. But I'm here with Haldor, CEO and game director, and also Dardi, the performance director and senior cinematographer. And well, let's talk a little bit about what's happened over the last few years, then, guys. So, again, it's been I think, about 4 years since you first presented the game to the world. How have things changed, and what have you been doing in the past few years?
Oh man, that's a big question for all those years. We have been so when we first announced the game, we were very early on in the production for sure. So what was being shown there was stuff from like earlier prototypes and really early development, painfully early, as other game developers will know it. So we're excited for the last 4 or 5 years. We've been, making the game, making it all like start to finish. We partnered with the wonderful partners at Deep Silver, and we've been developing this thing from start to finish. So everything has happened that can possibly happen in that time, I think.
So let's talk a bit about it then. People might have seen the recent trailer and they'll be a little bit familiar with what is going to be offered up in Echoes of the End. But tell me about it from your end then. What's the story of this game? What can people look forward to experiencing for themselves in it?
Yeah, absolutely. So just kind of to give the tagline of the game, Echoes of the End is an action adventure game, a story-driven action adventure. It is an experience that it takes a lot of inspiration from Iceland, from our home country. We really wanted to kind of bring that into the fantasy world and into the characters and into the story. But it's a game that we focus a lot on combat in the game. It's a big pillar, but also on puzzles, on platforming and exploration. And those tend to be the kind of main gameplay pillars of the game. But in terms of the story, we're following two characters primarily. They're called Rin and Abram, as you might have seen them in the trailer. And following the opening of the game, where something very dramatic comes down, Rin and Abram are forced to team up, and they're forced to work together. And the game kind of is centered really around their relationship as two characters. They're having to learn to work together as strangers that kind of come at it from opposite ends. And they're also having to kind of overcome these challenges that are being faced in the story. And as we kind of unfold things, you kind of learn a lot more about each character and their backgrounds, and ultimately kind of having to come to terms with the main conflicts of the game.
Now, you mentioned there that obviously there's the Icelandic inspiration, and obviously you guys are based in Iceland as well. When you were making Echoes of the End, what were some parts of the Icelandic culture and Iceland as a whole that you were like, we have to make sure that these things are represented inside Echoes of the End?
David, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, like one of the first things that we were just fascinated by was our like lead actors, and a lot of the game is sort of structured around these main characters, Rin and Abram, and the way they bounce off each other. And we were very quick to discover that what we were looking for was a way to like scan them, put them in the game, and let them become those characters. So these are photo scans of these actors that to us we grew up with, and those were kind of essential to the whole piece. Kalle, for instance, is we've been joking around that he's kind of an Icelandic Monty Python character. It's like the Icelandic John Cleese. And he's hilarious and he's funny and he's got excellent dramatic chops. And Aldi's a rising star. And now that we're finally here at the end of this long journey, an incredible actress already with like established credentials, having appeared in Hellblade 2 as well. So those things were very, very present from early on. And then on top of that, there's the Icelandic landscape and nature and visuals that also come in strong. We wanted to have that sort of that look of various locations that people who've traveled to Iceland or people who lived in Iceland would recognize from their journeys here, from Instagram or whatever that is. That's Kirkjufell and glaciers and basalt beaches and lava rocks and all of these things. We wanted to take people and put them in that world with these characters.
And obviously, you mentioned there about Hellblade, and I think that's quite an interesting comparison to bring up because I think Echoes of the End and Hellblade, they quite, I think they kind of remind each other of one another, with the way that they're sort of set up visually. When you're going into making a game with these sort of photorealistic visuals, what are some of the things that you have to sort of prioritize and make sure you get right? And how does that also translate into a performer sense as well? Making sure that you get the best out of the people that are playing these characters for you.
So I think there's definitely a, a visual challenge in terms of all of it, because we're doing most of the game. We have scanned here in Iceland, the team itself, and we have been, as Dade mentioned, scanning quite interesting places here. But the challenge is that if you have something that looks absolutely photoreal as an asset, let's say we just scan a mountain or scan a rock, then as soon as you're trying to inject fantasy into it and you're trying to make a game mechanic that has to read for the player and be understood and glow blue so you understand that you have to interact with it or something, it's a really fine line, and we had to iterate it on it many times to land on something that just didn't feel like it kind of stood out. And you can definitely see that in the trailer, what we learned is that minimal and as grounded as we can with these mechanics is the way to go, just to kind of tie it into the world itself and make it feel like a cohesive thing. But it's especially challenging because there's we have so many different biomes in the game, and one of the core tenets of the game is that we have these different chapters, and actually the different chapters will have different game mechanics. And so there's a lot of variety of game mechanics that you encounter throughout the world. So that also made it a bit more complex because we had to construct visually the environment almost hand in hand with the mechanic that's intended. So that was definitely a tricky challenge for sure.
There's a challenge as well with performances and the way that they sort of line up with photoreal and what you expect from like a cinematic, like a movie. And we had to spend quite a bit of time very early on to try and figure out how to do muted cinema-like performances in a video game. And I remember getting the first sort of animation pass on one of the first scenes Altis ever did, and she gave this brilliant, intense performance staring down the character she's talking to. And it was chilling being in the studio with her. But when we got the data, it just looked like we'd forgotten to animate her eyebrows. Because when somebody in real life locks their eyebrows in place and stares at you, you can feel the intensity of it. But if it's in a video game, you're like, oh, they messed it up. Like there's something missing. And now we had to go in and we had to like figure out little tweaks that we could do either in post or in the studio with the actors to try and make sure that the cinematic language is of both video games and what you expect from them and of what you'd expect from a cinematic performance. And that's a fine line to dance, we kept finding out.
So talking a bit about the gameplay as well, then we've seen snippets of it in the trailers that you guys have shown off. But if you had to sort of draw a comparison to the way that another video game plays to give people that may be a little bit unfamiliar with what to expect from Echoes of the End, what would you sort of pick out and say this is how it's going to perform? Should we expect something a bit more linear narrative focused like Hellblade, or something more action oriented like God of War or something?
It's definitely. I think the comparisons with Hellblade, there are definitely, like in terms of a story and setting, there are parallels, but I think they almost like start and end there because the game is definitely like it is a linear game for the most part. There are some open areas that you can choose where to explore in certain ways and do things in your own order. But for the most part, the structure of the game almost reminds you of like Uncharted 4 in a way. But in terms of kind of what to expect, I mean, it is absolutely action-packed, and what we kind of wanted to set up was a kind of back to basics, classic action-adventure game that just throws you in and lets you have fun with the game mechanics while going through a really fun story, and it just has a start and has a finish. And that was really kind of what we wanted to deliver. But the game itself, I would say, what we really focused on the game is also the companion, because you have more than one companion throughout the game at different stages, and companions are really quite deeply integrated into the gameplay. You might have seen some of it in the trailer if you had a keen eye, where you could throw an enemy into your companion and he would kind of sucker punch him down. I think we did that with the Scorpion in the trailer. And then there's another instance where you're kind of fighting and you can see him in the background just tussling and taking a guy down. So he's very much an active part, not only physically but also with his kind of special abilities in the game. But this also ties into the other elements, like the way we kind of talk about it internally. When we were making a puzzle, if Rin is kind of the hammer that's brought into the puzzle, Abram, the main companion, is the screwdriver. And then we kind of have to figure out, when they're solving puzzles, where does the hammer go and where does the screwdriver go, and how do we make them collaborate and kind of work seamlessly together when they're solving these things. So they're always top of mind, like where should the companion be, what should the companion be doing, and how is it guiding the player or making the gameplay more layered and fun. So that's also like a really deep kind of thing for this game.
And one of the other areas that seemed to caught my attention, at least in the trailer, is that it's not just about sort of might and just sword play and melee weapons. There's magic involved in this game. So tell me about what that entails and what we can expect from that side of the action.
Yeah. Do you want to take this? Or?
Sure. Rin is a vestige. She has this. She is born with these powers, which is rare in her in this world, and is therefore able to do. She's got an inherent connection to the magical sort of sources of the world, and is able to do certain things with it. And there's also that's represented with her markings in the game. She's got these sort of purplish glowing things up her left arm. And she's got a whole bunch of gameplay mechanics based off of that. I'll bounce it over to you, Haldur.
Yeah, I just wanted to dive in and say two things that I think are going to be. Also, it's all in the trailer, so I don't think I'm spoiling anything. But but the magic is quite prevalent in the world, and you see it in the game mechanics. You see it in the different things. So it's quite rare what she can do, but it's not rare to encounter magic in the game. And you will see some of the enemies have certain weapons and certain designs, and even the companion has a certain kind of brace on him that can engage with magic. So it's kind of different layers. But I also wanted to mention that you talked about it not all being about might, and I think this is also reflected in the main hero Rin, is that her powers are kind of a double-edged sword in this game. It's in the narrative especially, where the powers that she holds are not like you don't have like a D&D rule set for how you can use the magic. Like it's a bit unfamiliar, and she doesn't have full control over it. And most who have these things don't have full control over it either. And that has led to some unfortunate scenarios in the past, and also kind of is a conflict within the character when we go through it. So it's not just a pure plus in this world. If you have this ability that she has, it is quite a big subtractor as well.
Now, you guys, last time I checked at least, I think you're around a 40-person team, all things considered. Yep. What goes on behind the scenes when you're, looking to manage and deliver a game like Echoes of the End, a game of this sort of level of ambition and quality, because, and I bring it up because it's a topic of conversation that a lot of people are very interested in following a game like Clair Obscur recently. So how do you go about doing that? Making a game that's AA, but I think looks more AAA than some AAA we see as of late. How do you manage all that?
Yeah, my favorite way to describe it, which I saw in the coverage of Expedition, was AA with AAA ambitions, and that's a really good way to say it. But definitely, like for us, this is very much part of of the studio from the start. Like our hearts were set on these types of games. This is really what we wanted to make as a studio, and at the time we were seeing that. And this is back in like 2018 or whatever. And then we were seeing like that these technologies were taking a big step forward across all areas and all slices of game development. And we saw that there was opportunities to be found within photogrammetry, within motion capture, within just how we make and structure the content, how we build, and then of course Unreal Engine was a huge unlock to exactly what we were doing. And so that kind of, as I've been asked a couple of times when I'm talking about the project, like what happened when you made the switch to Unreal Engine 5? Was that a lot of work? And we were like, no, that was fantastic, because we had all these scanned assets and we could just up-res to the source material of our original scans. So that was really, really great. But for the studio, I think for us, like we crafted everything from the ground up to be made in such a way that a mid-sized team could tackle the challenge. And so that really translates across all areas. And that's one of the reasons why we had to build our own motion capture studio on site. It's just because to be able to produce the sheer amount of cutscenes and the sheer amount of volume of game animations that are in the game, for the main characters, for the companions, for all the different enemies, for all the different bosses, all of that, it's a lot of work for a 40-person team and then an animation team of like 5. But the real unlock to that is just having it in-house, building everything custom and bespoke to adapting it to a mid-sized team. And that really was the superpower. The same thing for especially, we built our own photogravity rig as well for scanning the digital doubles in the game. And that was also pivotal because, if we would have done it once, externally, we would have been quite limited, but doing it this time, we could really fill in the extras in the game or do do-overs on the main cast and really kind of iterate the process as we got better at it, as we, were able to do higher res, anything like that. So, games are such a big iteration, and having all this on hand, while it's a big investment up front, is the superpower enabler for a mid-sized team to do this, in our sake, at least.
And one of the other sort of discussions I think that has sort of been birthed from the massive support surrounding Clair Obscur has been this topic of sort of game pricing. We're seeing, as of very recently, Mario Kart World comes out. It's priced at like £70, and people look at it and go like, "Is that a lot of money? Is it not a lot of money?" Different opinions. Clair Obscur, we saw sort of target a price bracket that was significantly lower than what we see for a lot of AAA. Have you put any thought into this current topic, and will it affect your launch plans at all for Echoes the End?
We have. I'm not entirely sure what I'm allowed to say at this point on it, but I think it's pretty safe for me to say that we want to be below the AAA pricing on this game. I mean, we want to offer good value, especially for people who are stepping in and trying out a new IP and coming into, giving this game a shot effectively when it pops up in their store. I think it plays a big factor. And being a smaller team with a smaller production, that's also something that makes sense, I think. And it also just helps us, because this isn't a AAA game, like not fully. And we also don't want to invite the comparison to that in terms of people's expectations. We want to give them a great value experience for a great value price for a game that they will really enjoy and then put down and be happy. And I think, finding the price for that, as Clair Obscur did as well, is critical for consumers to kind of have the value that they want out of the game.
And one of the other things that you guys mentioned in the trailer was that it's going to be launching in summer 2025, which is a particularly interesting thing because we're in summer 2025 as of the now. So, do we have a firm date yet, or when will we know when there's going to be a firm date?
I think it's going to be pretty soon that you'll know something. We definitely have. We wanted to kick off the marketing campaign with a bang and show up at Future Game Show and show the world what we've been up to. We've been sitting on this secret for so many years now. We're just happy to be able to talk about it. But no, we expect to roll out more trailers and more materials, and I think it's fair to expect that in some of those upcoming materials soon. We will have more details both on the game and on the exact release date as well.
So PC, PS5, Xbox Series X and S. Have you put any thought into a Switch 2?
That was as soon as it was announced, the internal team was like, "Oh, we gotta do this." But I think it's too early to say anything just yet. Still, I would definitely say that for the studio, it's highly interesting, and the capabilities of the Nintendo Switch 2 are certainly very promising. In terms of especially Unreal Engine 5 games, being able to be compatible with that, but I can't give any firm answers on it just yet.
So as a final thing then for the pair of you, obviously the game is I'm assuming very close at this point, but when it does come, when people finally get to jump into Echoes of the End for themselves, what's one thing that you're really excited for fans to experience for themselves?
Good question. I think I would have to say the relationship between the duo. If I had to pick one thing, because that's the heart of the game. That's really, this from these other types of games. I mean, we mentioned God of War. If we mentioned Last of Us as well, the thing that really sits with you is the journey between Ellie and Joel, and the journey between Atreus and Kratos in this kind of duo protagonist scenario. And I think the offering. Or the relationship that Altis, Amma, and Karat, the actors, deliver to those, paired with the writing that's done here, is just, it has a special place in my heart. So that's what I'm most excited about, I think.
That was going to be my exact answer. I really can't wait for everybody to know how good these two are together, because it is so often a joy to just go and spend some time with them in the studio or whenever we're filming things. And if there's something that we're not sure about, or if there's something we don't know, is this going to work? Is it not going to work? And then we get the pair of them in there, and it's just a joy to listen to them because they're funny. They're they're really funny, and then also it's huge emotional beats right afterwards. So you build this sort of fascinating relationship with them as a player, and it's yeah, it's a it's going to be a great way to spend some time as a player. Is you're gonna come in, you're gonna absolutely fall in love with these characters, guarantee it.
Well, I'm looking forward to it, and I can't wait to hear more about the game. Again, we're expecting the official information about the release date and all that good stuff very, very soon, so stay tuned for it. And until then, for more on Echoes the End, be sure to keep an eye on your local Game Reactor region. Thank you all for watching, and yeah, guys, thanks for speaking with me today. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Thank you so much.